And in theory, we are live. We're about to go live. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to myself right now. Alrighty. Am I appearing on camera? Looks like it. Or at least almost. Okay. Hey everybody. Just a little bit late, but here we are. New location. Internet may or may not be working properly. So yeah, trying some new things out, seeing how it works out. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Had all kinds of drama trying to get this set up. My internet was slow, so I had to bump the router. I'm in a new location, so to figure out lighting and how to get all that to work right. But it looks like, at least in some sense, we are kind of live to some extent. So if you want to start throwing questions into the chat board, I can start attempting to answer your questions, and you can start spying on my little facility and get a glance at how the room looks. You can obviously see my usual shooting location right back over there. My lights attached to the ceiling, my new little viewing space right over there, and then I am seated at my new desk where I will be doing editing in the future. Actually, I've started doing my editing, so before I didn't really have a good place to edit where I could like have a movie on in the background or watch through over what I need to watch through. With the current setup, I can sit at this desk, got that TV right over there, so I can actually kind of be watching while doing things and not have to force my wife to watch whatever I'm wanting to work on. So, with that said, we got lots of people joining in on the chat section. Let's go for it. McCavian Comics. Hey, Sean. Hey, how's it going? McCavian Comics. Thoughts on Krypton being canceled? So I've seen a bit of the show. Well, actually, that's not true. I've seen about all of season 1. I haven't seen the last 1 or 2 episodes of season 1. So, and I probably would have finished. I got in a groove. Something happens around episode 8 involving someone dying. I was watching it with my wife, and my wife was like, I'm done after that person died. And if you've watched the show, you probably know what I'm talking about and why my wife would be that way. So I haven't just picked it back up yet. So I didn't love it. I can see why it probably isn't getting the ratings that they hoped for. Like, oh, we got a show based off Superman. Like, this will probably be awesome. If you're looking for a Superman show, it's not really a Superman show. It's got a lot of Superman stuff thrown into the mix, but it all feels Easter eggy. Even as deep Krypton as it is, it all feels like Easter eggs rather than like really diving into the Superman mythology because it's all all Elseworld type things. So I can see why it probably didn't hook the people that they were hoping it would hook. Haller with a hey, Kevin Comics, how's your day been? It's been good. Went to the gym, edited a video, posted the video, went to the gym, just watched the final battle in Endgame with my kids, and then once I finish this, I'm gonna go watch the whole movie with my kids while doing the fantasy drafts for the 2 Sean Chandler Talks About Inner Circle fantasy football league. So I'm gonna watch that tonight, and I've been brainstorming podcast stuff. Here, I'll announce this right now. On Monday, I'm going to do a demo run, test run of my podcast for you guys. It'll be a total demo version, but on Monday at some point in time, I'll probably put a poll out tomorrow to see what time you guys would be most available to do this, to check it out. But the podcast I'm working on, I'm going to start doing weekly demo runs, maybe 2 per week demo runs leading up to the full launch a month from now. But on the Patreon page, basically, you guys will be kind of where I test it out. And so that's going to start Monday. Just to some thoughts. Internet's acting funky. All right, we got Mehren van der Seer. I'm sure I botched him. I'm very sorry about that. I don't always know how to pronounce foreign names when I'm reading them for the first time. Actually, a lot of your names I'm not sure how to pronounce. With a hey, Sean, hey. David, suggestions for Wolverine. Aaron Paul, Miles Teller, Oscar Isaac. Or Oscar is what you wrote there. But I think you mean Oscar Isaac. I don't really know. Aaron Paul, maybe. Miles Teller, I don't see Miles Teller just with his look. I don't see it. The vibe that he gives off, I just don't see Wolverine there. Oscar Isaac, maybe. I just don't. I'd be so leery of having Poe Dameron play Wolverine, because it's Wolverine's, you see the face, and so I've recommended some other people, but I think with him, I don't. He would be one where I'd see too much of Star Wars character as the role. Harlan Johnson, excited for It 2. If you watch the video I posted today, you will know the answer to that one. I talk about it in the video about most anticipated for the rest of the year. You will know my thoughts on that. It's kind of fully elaborated in there. There you go. David says, Isaac, not Oscar. That's what it's up. Cody Watson, hey Sean, do you think there's a chance you might ever do some Masters of Movie Trivia? Is there ever a chance it'll do some Masters of Movie Trivia? Well, I assume you mean do more Masters of Movie Trivia, because is there a chance it will ever includes the past, in which case I've done 4 already. Will ever do more? I don't know. It's gotten really, it's always been tough. If you guys don't know what he's talking about, over 2.5 years ago, I did something called Masters of Movie Trivia. It was my own movie trivia show where I did with some of my friends here on YouTube, and so my own little movie trivia show. The people that watched it seemed to love it. But at the time I posted it, it didn't do as well as I think I needed it to do to justify the amount of work that went into it. Because to schedule everyone's time and write the questions and edit it all together, it just meant I couldn't do anything for a week other than edit those videos. I'd probably do a lot better now because I've just 2.5 more years of editing experience. I'd probably be much more efficient. I'm also full-time, so everything I edit takes more time to edit. So I don't know how much of that would kind of fix some of that, but it just took forever to edit, and so I didn't move forward with more episodes, even though people loved it, or the people that watched it loved it. It wasn't something that seemed to draw new people in, though. And I think that's the problem as to why I didn't end up doing more, is that it was like, okay, that was really cool for this community building thing. It served its purpose. I just can't justify doing more of these. It was something I did it because I wanted to be on a movie trivia show. And so then I kind of worked with some people. It's just really tough to write good questions. So then that meant I had to write most of the questions, or there's only so many people I could trust to write questions because it's so specific as to what makes for a hard question versus too easy of a question. That sweet spot between the two of them, that's where it gets really tough to write really good questions, and you have to have someone that thinks a specific way to know exactly what that means. That's kind of my thoughts on it. And then the other thing, in the 2.5 years, I was at 900 subscribers ish when I put out the first episode. 900 subscribers when I put the first Masters of Movie Trivia out. I have literally 140 times as many subscribers, and a lot of those people that I did stuff with have had some success since then, and some of them haven't had as much success. And so then it's also tricky because I'd need to have people that feel like they fit with where my channel's at. And I don't know a lot of people. There's a lot of things like that make it tricky to do more. All right, that's a long answer to a question. But if you guys want to check this out, it's one of the more fun things I've ever done. Just one of the things it's tough to continue doing. Masters of Movie Trivia, once this is done. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. You can see my movie trivia prowess and stuff like that. And, pretty cool. David Patterson, I started reading It last night. Yeah, I think we talked about that on Instagram, I believe. Lost my questions. McCavian Comics, there's a rumor that Superman will be in the next Teen Titans seasons. Hopefully that's true and well casted. I mean, they're working on Batman, so it wouldn't surprise me too much if Superman did show up. I mean, if they cast someone, it's not gonna be a blow your mind casting, whatever they're gonna do. I mean, it's gonna be a small role. Andy, hello, tuning in from my new apartment that I moved into this morning. Oh, very cool. I'm doing this from my new desk, so we're both in new settings. Matt G, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you too. David Patterson, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but with crime at a different points in time would be awesome. So I guess you're pitching an idea for an alternate version of Bill and Ted's where you kind of check out crime at different points in time. I think there's a lot you can do with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. time travel always, there's always things you could do and experiment with it. Cody Watson, who's your favorite actress crush? Mine would be Kate Beckinsale after watching Underworld. Favorite actress crush? It's always tough because I tend to like variety, and so I don't tend to have the one favorite. That's true with movies. That's true with everything. I don't like to pick favorites. I don't know, like Rachel McAdams, Drew Barrymore, Anne Hathaway. I don't know. I'm just throwing out several names. Scarlett Johansson. I'm literally just throwing out names. There's many more that could potentially fall into that. I don't have like one though that makes it nice and simple. And even as I say some of those ones, it's only like certain areas of those person is like what I'm thinking of, and other areas is like not this but this. So that's the best answer I can give you. Vandersern, have you seen Maze Runner films, Sean? You can call me Marion. Marion, yes, I have a ranking. So I did a ranking whenever the last one came out. So you can check that out once the stream is done. My take on all of them. I don't love them. I didn't hate them. It was kind of like, okay, that was kind of cool. That was kind of my take on the franchise. Some of them were better than other ones, but I've got a ranking so you can see how I feel about all of them. Mr. Comics, I've heard speculation that Phase 5 will be announced at D23. This spans out to be true. What are your thoughts on this? What are my thoughts on them announcing it at D23? Or I've heard that speculation too. I have my calendar mapped out for next week or the next couple weeks, and I looked at it. I actually just a couple days ago was like, oh, D23 is coming up. I better block some time to do some videos about that. So I suspect that there's a good chance that'll be true, because we know that they're working on Guardians Volume 3 and some of the, like, we know it's happening, and then they didn't just announce it, or they just kind of like hinted at it. They only went 2 years out when we know that they've got things further than 2 years out. So it wouldn't surprise me too much. And especially like, you look at what they did for Phase 4, and it's so all experimental that you're like, oh, that's cool that they're doing all these experiments. But there was nothing in there that was just like, the next Avengers. There's not that big event film. It's like a bunch of like, oh, that's interesting that they're doing that. But not an event film. Not one of those movies they announced was an event film. So, it feels like they could be like, and they gave us 2 years. And so if Phase 5 is the next 3 years after that, 3 movies each year, 9 movies, they could give us Phase 5, takes us out 5 years from now, and it's got that event film in there. So I think it's very possible, and I've got some time mapped out to talk about. David Patterson, I won't be able to see It Chapter 2 until it releases on digital. Sorry about that. It's unfortunate. Comics Masters of Movie Trivia was one of the first videos I watched of your videos. I guess maybe some people did discover me through it. They're like at that point in time when I would do a ranking that would do well, it would get like 1,000 views. A movie review would get like 200 views, and Masters of Movie Trivia was about 500 views. And I say all that to be like, if I could put out 2 or 3 videos ranking a franchise and get like 4,000 views, or I could do one Masters of Movie Trivia, and they were really stressful to make. And I just couldn't justify the time, and especially the point. I did it in the spring, and so by the time I finished the first batch, we were going into summertime where all the big stuff was coming out, and so that's it. Very much at the I did Masters of Movie Trivia before I became the ranking guy. So actually, what happened? Right parallel to finishing up the first 4 episodes of Masters of Movie Trivia was where I was like, I'm going to start ranking things weekly. So it very much kind of was a choice. Like, I'm going to do rank franchises, and that's where I became the ranking guy. Was when I haven't ever thought about it that way, but that's where I became the ranking guy. Was when I decided not to do more Masters of Movie Trivia. They're not really related, but they did overlap a little bit. David, since school is starting this week, I'm a teacher. Favorite school movie? Huh? That's a good question. That could mean a lot of different things. Man. I haven't thought about it in those terms before. So Spider-Man Homecoming is, I guess, a school movie of sorts. So favorite high school movie, or a superhero school movie, Spider-Man Far From Home. Scream I guess you could call a school movie, is a horror school movie. So I would go with Scream as my horror school movie. It's coming of age. I'm thinking of like I wish I had a good like John Hughes one. I don't know which one I would pick for like if I were to go just like coming of age school movie. I'm not sure, but there's a couple of answers that come to mind as I'm just kind of spitballing. Matt G. So this is true. Disney made Spider-Man and Sony distributed it. Fox made Dark Phoenix and Disney distributed it. Well, at the same time, has this ever happened before? It's a bit bonkers. But it's even more complicated than that, because it's not just that Disney made. It's not fully that Disney made Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, it's very much this joint deal. My understanding is Kevin Feige did not want to do Spider-Man Far From Home this summer because he didn't want to be promoting Spider-Man Far From Home before we'd seen Endgame. So he wanted to push it back a little bit, but Sony was like, no, it has to be this date. So it's a very complicated mashup, whereas with Dark Phoenix, Fox made it. Like, Fox made it, and then Disney bought them, so it was technically distributed by Disney. But even inside of that, Fox is still its own thing. Like, I wasn't invited to a press screening for Dark Phoenix. And I don't even, maybe there wasn't one in Austin. I don't really know. Maybe there wasn't one. That's why I wasn't invited. But like, I get invited to all the Disney screenings now. But I was not invited, I get invited to the Sony screenings, but I was not invited to this one because I guess I'm not on the Fox lists. And other Fox movies would affirm this, that I'm not on the Fox press list. And so it's this very weird, like, distinguish it, like what all of it means and how all it works. The infrastructure is still in place for Fox to distribute things, but it's owned by Disney. So it's all very weird the way it is. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything on the scale of what's going on right now with Disney's vast reaches. There have been all kinds of mergers and things throughout all of history, but I don't think there's stuff as weird as what's, Disney's big arms. Buffred 100. Hiya, what are your expectations, if any, for D23 next weekend, if any? Man, that's tough. It's tough because there's a chance there's a lot of things that they could announce. This Obi-Wan series, the rumors broke this last week. Wouldn't be surprised if, like, confirmed, Ewan McGregor walks out and they're like, ta-da! He's getting that series. We've been talking about doing Obi-Wan Kenobi for 3 years. He's been saying he wants to do it. We want to do it. We're doing it on Disney+. And they announced that. I think that's a good fit. That's like a series I can get excited about. Of all the things they've announced. Star Wars, of MCU, there's all the Disney Plus things announced. Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan, 6-episode series. That would be the one I would be most excited for. So if they announce that, that'd be cool. They could, we could get Phase 5. And that would not surprise me a bit. It wouldn't surprise me too much if we didn't get it, though. So, I'm 50-50 on whether we get Phase 5. I'm not surprised either way. What else do they have? Maybe some, of course, Pixar stuff, and maybe another Frozen trailer. There's a number of things that could happen, but, Mandalorian trailer. Maybe Mandalorian trailers, maybe that's the one that I'll say. We'll get, maybe on the internet, too, we'll get to see a Mandalorian trailer, perhaps. David, favorite documentary ever? I'm not a huge documentary guy, so they don't necessarily pop. The one that probably has been the most intriguing to me, that seemed like a deeper cut, that's an interesting answer for me, would be Bigger, Stronger, Faster, I believe is what it's called. I don't know, it came out like 10 years ago or something like that. And it's a documentary on the effects of kind of 80s, macho man movie stars on kind of like my generation of guys in kind of body image type stuff. And it talks about basically how it's a false expectation of masculinity and what you can and can't achieve. And, it talks about the steroid use inside of fitness modeling and bodybuilding and professional wrestling. There's a whole section on the supplement industry. And they meet with a top fitness model. And he's like, yeah, I sell Hydroxycut and I'm out there on Hydroxycut, but I was also on steroids when I did that. I use steroids to keep up my muscularity, but I use Hydroxycut to cut fat. And so it's not dishonest. I mean, of course I was using more than just hydroxycut. No one swears that you get cut by just taking hydroxycut. It's part of a diet and other things. So I was doing other things. I just was using hydroxycut too. It's a really fascinating documentary. As someone that's kind of into fitness, into the movies that like all the stuff that like, I mean, it's Stallone, Schwarzenegger, all the stuff inside of it kind of is stuff that's of interest to me. I lost my place again. Oh, so many questions. David Patterson, someone in my theater class asked if he could do a backflip on the stage. The teacher said no. He said he did it anyways. His flew shoe off his foot. His AirPods stayed in, but he landed the flip. Well, very impressive. All those moments in life where a guy just runs up on stage, does a backflip. Fun times. Matt G, what's your feelings on TV shows that lasted one season, got canceled, then developed cult followings, and then you can't believe they only lasted one season, like Freaks and Geeks, Undeclared, Gidget. What's my feelings on TV shows like that? I mean, I think that's the frustrating thing about TV is that it's a very fickle medium where it lends itself to certain TV shows have a very easy to market premise, and so then they can grab an audience pretty quickly, and other ones takes a little while to figure out exactly what they are. And the nature of TV, most TV shows take a season or two to become their best. There's a few high concept TV shows where they start off awesome and then they dwindle off. But a lot of TV shows, they reach their peak around season 2, 3, 4. So it's one of the frustrations of the format. Fox is really infamous for cutting TV shows that are really good, and they market them wrong, they release them wrong, and then they don't give enough time to find their audience, and then they axe them, and then on video, people fall in love with them. Fox, I think, is the one most infamous for doing that the most number of times in the last 20 years. But, so those are some quick thoughts on it. It's incredibly frustrating. Matt Watson, I am 2 seasons behind in Arrowverse, but if I have to get caught up quick for Crisis on Infinite Earths, I'm pretty burned on Arrow. I really did not like what they did this last season, how they ended this last season. I think it was disrespectful to the audience. It seems like they wanted to end the show, but they also wanted Arrow to be around for Crisis on Infinite Earths, and the way they blended that all together, I think is really bad. David Patterson, Love Simon is on sale for $8 on Vudu. Still haven't seen that one. I guess that might be why you're telling me. Ruben Otter, are you going to watch 13 Reasons Why Season 3? No, I haven't seen Seasons 1 or 2. I have no desire to, for a couple reasons. The subject matter, I don't think lends it. It seems like a very strange series to me to make as entertainment for people. They ignored the advice of some suicide counselors in making the first season, and they showed things that suicide counselors said you shouldn't show. A bunch of people are like, yeah, but I mean, it like doesn't romanticize suicide. I mean, it was really powerful, anti-bullying, and really eye-opening. And I see what those people are saying, but I think what they're missing is that the warnings aren't for the 98% of people that are fine watching it. It's for the 2% that can be put in a dangerous state. The vast majority of people watch it and they think, oh, suicide is awful, bullying is bad, wow, I have a new insight onto how this could hurt someone. 2% of people see something really dangerous. And that's what the producers, they focused on the 98%, not the 2%. The 2% is where there's something really dangerous that could happen. But more importantly, I dealt with multiple high school suicides when I was a youth pastor. I was a on the scene counselor at a high school the day after a high school girl committed suicide. One of my own students that I knew very well, and I mean, I know his family very well to this day. I mean, I was talking with this guy's brother last Sunday. I was talking to him 6 days ago. After he committed suicide, I was at his house with him, with his parents. His brother one of the brothers walked me out to the shed where he killed himself. And I mean, walked me through exactly what happened. And I didn't, he was doing it just as a way to process it himself, was just to talk too much. And so the idea of watching a show about high school suicide for entertainment is like the last thing I would ever want to do. Like that was that was a thing that broke pieces of me that I can never get back. Some of even the struggles I've had in life with addiction, it goes back to a phase of life where I had to deal with things and be a counselor for people when I did not have the strength to do that. So the idea of watching entertainment of a high school suicide is I can't imagine ever doing that. And the fact that they're stretching out the show for 3 seasons just seems outrageous to me and kind of offensive in and of itself. Mumford 100, would you like the next event film to be... What would you like to be the next event film for the MCU? You can call me, by the way, Haya from UK. You can call me, it's... I think you meant to type something, but it came out as Ant. So I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to say. What do I want the next event film to be? I don't really know. I'm open to a lot of things. I mean, people have been talking about Secret Wars. I haven't read Secret Wars, so I don't really know what Secret Wars is. I think there's a lot of room to do something really interesting with when you bring the Fantastic Four X-Men into it, and you have something that's not this intergalactic threat, but you make it the Earth, like chaos on the Earth, civil unrest, because you just had this climactic, catastrophic event. Maybe this is what causes mutants to start appearing, and there's just a bunch of different things inside of that to where you can do something very different. You don't try and compete with Infinity War and Endgame. You do a very different type of event film. That's probably what I would. I don't want it to feel like trying to top Endgame. You do something different. Mr. Comics, I'm really wishing DC will come into San Diego Comic-Con 2020 full blast. Actually stick to their movie slate. It's very frustrating being a DC fan. Yeah, I mean they're... Yeah. Yeah, me too. I want DC to be... I love the DC characters. They don't have a Kevin Feige. They don't have a clear plan. And so it seems very much like they're prone to follow trends. And Man of Steel was not a film that was designed to set up a universe. You just could watch the movie. It's designed to be internally true to itself. It's not designed standalone. It's not meant to set up a universe, and that's what they decided to build a universe off of. And I think they had some clever ideas with how they did that with Batman v Superman, but then as soon as you start expanding the universe, it doesn't really fit all that well with what they did with Man of Steel. And so that's the problem. So I don't think that there's much hope that with the DCU they can pull it together. They can make good movies. I don't think they will ever have a particularly cohesive universe because it had such a shady, rocky beginning, unfortunately. David Patterson, my dad's rooster is demonic. That's unfortunate. You're talking about stuff we already covered. David, favorite school movie for me, Stand and Deliver and Breakfast Club. Oh yeah, Stand and Deliver. That's one of the very early on serious drama movie that I watched. It's like the first movie of that genre that I watched. And it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm watching a movie that's not super funny and has no action inside of it, but I'm actually invested in it. And that's the first Edward James Olmos movie I ever saw. And yes, that was one that I've really, really dug too. Oh, so many questions. David, since Disney is remaking live action 90s cartoon, they should do the best one of the decade, a Goofy movie. At worst, a Powerline movie. Oh man, how terrifying would that be if they made a Goofy movie into a live action film? David Patterson, my top 10 movies from best to bestest are The Lion King, Ghostbusters, 12 Angry Men, A New Hope, Logan, Jurassic Park, Endgame, Empire Strikes Back, Inception, and The Dark Knight. A lot of Star Wars, a lot of Nolan in there, and a lot of variety too. So very cool, very cool. Matt G, are you a fan of the old Universal horror films, 31 to 48, Frankenstein, the original cinematic universe, one where the same actors played in every role in every movie? I gotta go with no. I mean, I think I've seen a good number of them at some point in time. They're not movies that I've watched recently. Even when I actually they had a series of books on them that I checked out at the library a lot when I was growing up. And I mean, I don't even remember the context of all this. So I remember even kind of reading the books with the story of them. And I might have not, some of them I haven't even seen the movie. I've read the book of the book based on the movie with pictures of it and everything like that. It's a very weird way to experience the films. But I can't say I'm a big fan or anything like that. They're just movies that I haven't checked out as much. Mumford 100. I'm so in with you on series. There's so much they can do with that. Yeah, I think it's one that it's a story that seems kind of interesting. It would be weird if they didn't get Ewan McGregor. There's a window of time where stuff can happen. So, and I think even making it a TV show gets me a little bit more excited because as soon as it's going to be a movie or was going to be a movie, I got nervous because if you make it too big, if you make it this big, massive $250 million film, you're taking Obi-Wan during a phase where he should be tucked away watching over Luke Skywalker, and you send him on this big, super important mission, and it feels like, why didn't we hear about that? Why didn't we know about that? If he's going to get into the action, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do this? Whereas if it's smaller, you can do it as kind of like a Western with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's doing these small things on Tatooine or something like that. That makes a lot more sense to me than big epic. And if they did an Obi-Wan movie, they'd put $200 million into it. They'd make it a big event film. So I kind of like it as a TV show for that reason. David Patterson, Thunderstruck should be used in Love. Love and Thunder. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they made Led Zeppelin. They made AC/DC associated with Iron Man. Obviously Black Sabbath as well, and then Led Zeppelin associated with Thor. So I'd be inclined to pick another Led Zeppelin song for it. Richard Hughes, greetings back from the beach. Fun times. David, how is it being a Christian living in a very liberal area, Austin? I live in the suburbs. Austin proper is very liberal, but Texas isn't. It's a pretty well balanced, I think better than most places because it's Texas, but it's also Austin. And so then you actually interact with people that have both extreme views on this. I know people that are crazy far to the left, and I know people that are crazy far to the right, and you actually have to interact with one another. Austin is very much a melting pot. Like the high school I went to here in Austin, very high Indian, Asian, Hispanic, African American, like the whole spectrum was very well represented at my high school. And that's the city of Austin. Like you have differing opinions. You have a variety of people, and it's not like, it seems like a really healthy way to do things. So I don't think entirely answers your question, but it seems like a much healthier balance of things than a lot of other places in the country, which just seems so far in one direction that they don't hear from people they disagree with very much. And they are kind of in bubbles. Austin's not really a bubble. It really is a mix of a lot of different types of people. At the same time, the difference between very much a lot of what you find in church world in the suburbs versus what you get when you go to downtown Austin, that's a pretty big gap. But we're all in the same city, same area, so we actually interact with each other quite a bit. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's interesting because it can at times feel like driving to a totally different, to a wildly different location when I go from what things are like in the neighborhood I live in, the city I live in, to driving to some of these screenings. Pretty big gap, culturally speaking. Or like I'm going to go to a film festival in about a month, and that feels like going to a different world because it's like a whole bunch of different people that are very much not like the community where I live in. Mad Chi, have you ever seen an MC-17 film in the theaters or sneak into a theater as a kid to see an R movie or an X-rated movie, old rating before NC-17, not pornography law? I've never seen an NC-17 movie in the theater. I don't know that I ever would. Well, no, I guess, actually, tying to this film festival I'm going to, I guess technically speaking, I saw a movie that would fall into that category at the film festival. So I think technically I might have. But I don't really know. There's a movie that I think would fall into that category, which was pretty frustrating with the way the whole thing played out. But I've never intentionally seen an NC-17 movie in a theater or X-rated movie in a theater. I don't think I ever. I snuck went to a drive-in movie theater to see Lion King, and I think I watched Lion King, and then I snuck over to the other side to watch True Lies. I think that would be the closest I ever had to sneaking into an R-rated movie, but I saw a lot of R-rated movies, and my mom would let me go or buy me a ticket or whatever. So I don't have any like a whole bunch of sensational stories about that sort of thing. Questions. Gaming Comics. There's a theory I heard that Thor: Love and Thunder is a cover-up name for an actual movie like what they did with Captain America: Civil War, which was originally announced as Serpent Society. I don't know. I mean, I don't know this whole story about what you mean about Serpent Society. I don't know. I don't know the backstory on that, so I didn't catch that type of thing. So I'm not sure I don't know the backstory on that one. I would guess that there might be more of an event film with Thor 4, but I don't. That could be why they're a little bit deceptive inside of it, and it could be ending that phase, and they're like, actually, it's this, and they announce fully what it is, and we go, oh, it is an event film ending it. It's not just, hey, we're doing 4 Thor, and it has, Lady Thor in it. Rich Review is going to put up a review for the review, and then I tried to put a review at the beach. Cool. Cody Watson, is it worth it to upgrade my Lord of the Rings set from theatrical versions to the extended versions? That's up to you. I mean, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan, so I have sat through the extended cuts, but that's not something that I enjoy doing. They're too long for me. So it's all a matter for you if it's a franchise that you want 4-hour versions of those movies. I don't. I would prefer if they were a little bit shorter. So up to you. Mumford 100, Ant, short for Anthony. Very typical shortening of the name in northeast of England. Huh, interesting. That is a thing I did not know. I have never heard Ant as a short for Anthony. Tony's the short version of it in Estados Unidos. Rich Reviews, the other 2 reviews I might film, put up next week with Loudest Voice in Mindhunter Season 2. Very cool. Rich Reviews, thoughts on The Hunt being canceled. All right, so what are you talking about? The Hunt being canceled was a movie that was going to come out, I don't know, a month from now or something like that, about, I guess, a bunch of elite rich people that are on the left going to hunt people in the southern part of the United States who tend to be on the Republican side of things. So it's simplified in the news headlines as the left hunting the right. Donald Trump chimes in on the movies in typical Donald Trump fashion, and in light of the sudden, we've been in kind of obviously a lot of gun violence, or in the terms of these mass shootings over the last several years is in of itself been alarming. And then this month specifically, a spike on top of the spike. So between Donald Trump timing in and the spike on top of a spike, they're like people hunting people. They canceled the movie. What's my take on it? I just don't ever think that's a good move. I don't think you should let current events guide things. I mean, if it's like truly in bad taste, if the movie was sensationalizing a mass shooting, that's in poor taste right now. So I could see delaying that. But canceling a movie, that is not a good move. Like, I fully understand being respectful of like, right now is not the right time, so we're gonna delay it a little bit, so it just doesn't feel like disrespectful. Canceling a movie, that just feels like following trends. Like, if you're like, no, I think it is okay to make a movie about these people hunting these people, this has artistic merit, it has something to say, and it's a good script, that doesn't change because Donald Trump said something. It just doesn't. And it's weird that they would suddenly now listen to him. It doesn't change because something happened. Like, and it's just not like really even a correlation between a wacko shooting people up at a Walmart and the plot of this movie. And so that's the stuff where I don't think it's a good move to cancel it. Mr. Comics, hot take. I've never seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies, nor do I intend to. Well, I mean, if you're a movie lover, you need to. If you're a movie lover, if you want to be kind of like being a movie fan seriously, you got to watch the Lord of the Rings films. I get that sometimes it's kind of fun to have these iconic franchises that you haven't seen. I totally get that. I don't know. If you want to be a part of movie conversations, that's one that I think you need. You don't need to watch The Hobbit, but I think you need to watch The Lord of the Rings. Alfred, I keep hearing Secret Wars is going to be Avengers 5. Would be interesting to see. That's all the rumors seem to be that. That's I've heard that rumor a lot. I've heard that speculation. That's probably the better way to put it. I've heard that speculation a lot. So we'll see what happens. And then there's pieces that would indicate that that's where that could be heading. David Patterson, a live-action Goofy horror movie. It could be interesting. Ruben Otter, what are your most anticipated movies of 2020? I don't know. I don't have a most anticipated of 2020 because I'm not thinking about 2020. I like it all. So people asked me in a live stream I did a few days ago. I can't pull them up because my mind is right now. I'm thinking about my schedule, posting. How do I build up to certain things? What's the best rankings to put afterwards? I'm looking to do more kind of old reviews, so I'm going to review the Rambo movies, probably the Terminator movies, probably the Star Wars movies, probably. So I'm thinking through 2019. I'm thinking through the next 5 months. So 2020, I'm not thinking about it very much. And as much as I live in the space of movie and movie news, I really can't remember things very much about it because my mind is so focused on the now. So I don't really know. Off the top of my head, it's just not, those files aren't loaded up in my brain. So I wish I had a better answer, but it would be the obvious stuff. You could probably guess what I'd be excited for based off what I talk about on my channel. Rich Reviews, hope things are going back to normal in El Paso. Well, yeah, I don't think that'll be for a while because it's pretty epic what, in the bad sense, what kind of happened there. A friend, probably my best friend from college lives in El Paso, and she was shopping at that Walmart the day before everything went down. And that's, for me, the most kind of personal connection to it, of that's my best friend from college, and she was there the day before. And that's, when reality starts getting close to home, and that it's not one that you shake off in a couple of weeks when something like that happens. The rest of the country does, which is not a good thing that we're getting used to these sorts of things. But the community there, it messes people up. Alfred, I think Dark Avengers could be an interesting route. I don't know too much about Dark. Actually, I don't know much about a lot of these ones on the deeper level, but I want them to, as I mentioned before, I want them to do something different. I want it to not feel like we're trying to one-up Endgame and Infinity War. And so anything that turns it on its head a little bit, I think is a good way to change it up. Mr. Comics, I plan for the next 3 to 4 phases. I plan for the next 3-4 phases is that the Endgame type ending is Secret Wars, both the old and new version, and that Annihilation and Galactus will be sprinkled in between phases. It could be possible. David Patterson, there are 3 Nolan movies. Where did it go? David Patterson, there are 3 Nolan movies I have not seen. The following: Memento and Insomnia. You got to see Memento. Memento is the movie that put him on the map. The following, it's like this very very low budget movie that he put together. You can see the sparks of it's a Nolan film, but it's not. It's so low budget that it's also, you see the budget when you watch it. Insomnia, it has never really felt very Nolan-y to me, but Memento, that movie catapulted him to the stardom. Everyone was talking about Memento, and Christopher Nolan, who is this guy that made this movie that's told backwards and disorienting, and it's an extremely unique movie experience. You gotta watch Memento. I would make that a top priority. And Insomnia, the following, not as important to rush out to watch those ones. But in Memento, And that's a movie for me that's also very important. That's when it was in the, I saw it in the theater. Not a lot of, that wasn't a big hit or anything like that. It was an indie release that way overperformed because people talked about it. So that's how I ended up seeing it. I was like fresh out of high school. I was right in my phase of life where I was getting into movies on a deeper level and not just watching blockbusters. And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you got to watch this movie. I just saw it called Memento, and it's told backwards, and it's got like a couple of the people from The Matrix in it. You got to check this one out." And it just blew my mind. Like, wow, I didn't know you could do that with a movie. And so it's such a big, important movie for me as a movie fan. And luckily, it just happened to be, also the launch of Christopher Nolan's career. So in a certain sense, it's one more piece in that little path to me being here talking to you was Memento. So it's also an important film for me. But yeah, definitely check that one out. Matt G, thoughts on Woodstock 50 not happening as a music fan, or what impact the first one had on the music and pop culture? I think the Woodstock 99 was just such a bizarre, epic failure that it sort of killed the revival. Didn't seem to work. I just don't. So it seemed like 94 was like this really cool. The memories of 1994 was a really neat event, and then it just went in all the wrong directions in 99. And I'm not quite sure how old you are, how much you remember some of that stuff, but like it was like, oh, this big music festival, and then it was like it caught on fire, and then the rumors of all the rapes that took place, and it's not terribly surprising to me that it didn't get to move forward in a normal sense after how poorly that one ended. So that's kind of what I would feel about. I don't know if I feel about that, but I don't know any of the stories. I don't know. I haven't read an article. I haven't been following any of the details about it, or if they were planning on doing it and cancel it. I don't know anything about it because I'm just so in movie space that I don't follow a lot of current music. But I'm saying all this based off of my memories and experiences with what happened with 99 and how it's kind of put a bad taste in everyone's mouths. Ruben, what are your thoughts on the Lord of the Rings series that Amazon is working on? I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I'm not by default super excited about it. Then I hear they're spending $1 billion on it for a TV show, and I have a hard time imagining how that can be profitable. Like I don't know how you make a TV series make $1 billion. So in it, like right there, I go, ooh. I don't know how good of an idea that is. I mean, try to imagine $1 billion is 3 Endgames. Like that's like make it 3 Endgames, and that's so much money for a TV show for a streaming service. So I don't know. I don't have I can't talk about it on an artistic level because it's just not one that I'm specifically excited for. Mom and Star Monsters, what do you think about The Hunt being canceled, and what would you have watched it? I actually just talked about this one, so I don't know if you just chimed in, or I don't know if you were here when I talked about it, but I literally talked about it about 5 minutes ago. Short version, I don't think they should have canceled it. I think it's a bad precedent. If they thought in light of the current scenario, in context, it just seemed like a poor timing, we're going to delay it, I'd be fine with that. The language they used of canceling it, I don't like that at all, especially as a response to the president chiming in. That is not a good thing on any level to set that precedent, to feed his ego, to empower him in any more direction. Like, I do not want him making decisions on things like that. So I don't like it at all. Would I have seen it? Probably. I like movies about people hunting people, so I probably would have gone to go see it. I'm really excited. One coming out next week. Ready or Not, it's about people hunting people, so I'm very excited about that one. Hunt wasn't as much on my radar, but it has Justin Hartley in it. So he's one that I've enjoyed him ever since he was Green Arrow on Smallville. I wanted him to have his own Green Arrow series, and then he didn't get it. They gave it to Stephen Amell, which, of course, I've had very strong feelings about that show and love and hate for it, but so I was excited for that reason. So, anyway, those are some thoughts on that one. Matt G, John Wick trilogy or the Matrix trilogy? So, the best movie out of the 3 trilogies is without question the original Matrix. Like, not like it's, it's way up here, and then, the best John Wick movie is kind of like here. quite a bit lower. But then the Matrix sequels are down here. But all 3 John Wick movies are right in here. So what's the better trilogy? Without question, the John Wick trilogy is a much better trilogy because it all works. I have some issues with the third one, but they're like minor issues. That's all 3 of these are really good. I'm a big fan of these. Matrix, I'm a massive fan of. The other ones, I'm not like at all. I don't think the second one, I've always felt like it could have gone either way. They went a little bit too far with what they tried to do with where special effects were at on a few things, and they turned everything upside down. I left that movie 2003 and was like, okay, that was really cool. I hope they're able to land the ship with where they left things. So I don't know. And then they didn't land the ship, and I think that hurt the second film. And because the second film was hurt, then I think it hurt the whole trilogy overall. Whereas my issues with John Wick 3, once again, very minor, still a B+ movie for me, didn't hurt the trilogy overall. It was just kind of like, okay, I think you should have resolved these plot lines in this movie and not, punted and, stretched things out a little bit. Matt G, do you think we would ever get a Gone with the Wind remake because they're remaking everything else? No. Well, I mean, will we ever get it? That's very possible. I don't think we would get it for... I think it's not a movie that would do well now. Like, you put Gone with the Wind in the theaters now, it's not going to be this big, massive event. People don't go see movies like that the way they used to. And then, likewise, I mean, you have to factor into it. The reason that Gone with the Wind was so successful is that it was like this great movie that was re-released in theaters for 40 years. For 40 years before people could own a copy of it. So if you wanted to see Gone with the Wind, you had to go to the theater to see it for 40 years. Or maybe it would run on TV for once every 6 months or something like that. That is such a different way the industry worked as compared to the way it works now. And that's why it's difficult to compare different, successes and what people are into. Add to it, just the subject matter of the film, I don't think would play well in 21st century world. And sensitivity to certain things. And so then you tell the story, and if you have to water it down and the timeline and the treatment of non-white characters, you run into a lot of problems. And whether you water it down or whether you keep it the way it was, it doesn't go well. It's not received well. So it's a film that I don't think is very easy to translate to now. David, have you ever walked out of a movie because it was so bad? I've never walked out because it was like quality bad. I went on a date with a girl from church to go see American Psycho. Not recommended. That is not a good date movie with a girl you met at church. And so when it got to the orgy, it was like, we should probably go. So I walked out of that one because it was a girl that I was on a date with from church, and then there was an orgy in it, and that got weird, so we left. And then I went with my wife while I was in Bible college to go see Crank. And we were expecting, like the Transporter, and instead it was like Grand Theft Auto, the movie. And so we walked out of that one because it was like, okay, we weren't in the mood for this hard R or whatever this is at that particular time in our life. I've rewatched it since then, but at that moment it was like, this is not a good date movie. And you hadn't known each other all that long at the time too. It's like, we met at Bible college. It's kind of weird. So those are the two I've walked out of, and it was content. It wasn't because they were necessarily bad. Mom Star and Monsters. Have you done a review on movies The Fifth Element and Scott Pilgrim? If not, what are your thoughts on those? No, I have not. I've talked about Scott Pilgrim in a ranking of Edgar Wright movies. So I talked about it in there, and it was an old ranking of mine. So one of my early first year of rankings. So it's every movie I did like a full review for, basically. Talked about it for 2-3 minutes, I believe. So you get my pretty good thoughts on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in my Edgar Wright ranking. Short version, it's not a movie I rewatch a lot. It's one of the most creative, interesting directed films. The way they visualized everything, I love it. The specific plot isn't one that kind of pulls me in. The style of the way they told that plot, I think, is really cool. I actually was doing some I was doing some scripted film stuff for the church I was at the time for a retreat. And it was this massive thing I wrote a 50-page script for it. And the final episode of this project I was working on was actually based heavily on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World in the style of it. The final act is a dodgeball battle. And so it's like whenever anyone gets hit with a ball, they would turn into coins. And so it's pretty cool little thing that I did. I really need to find that project to make sure I haven't lost it in eternity. It's very possible that I've lost it forever. But yeah, I had a friend of mine that helped me edit some of that one. But speaking of backflips, we talked about backflips. One of my former students actually learned to do a backflip for a stunt that I had in the video. It was like, dude, if you could run up the wall and do a backflip and we throw a ball underneath you, that would be awesome. And he did it. He learned to run up the wall and do a backflip, and we got the shot in there of doing that. I need to look these videos up. I really need to do that. So anyway, what was the question again? So anyway, Scott Pilgrim, very cool style. Fifth Element, as much as I am at times very much into Luc Besson's work, I haven't watched it recent enough. I might have only seen it one time. I wasn't a big fan when I first watched it, but I went from The Professional to watching it, and I was like, what am I watching right now? So I need to give it another shot. David Patterson, forgive me, but I've never seen 2001: A Space Odyssey. You are forgiven. I am not like a Stanley Kubrick Nazi, so I'm not someone that's like, you must watch it, I'm not that guy at all. I'm not like a fanatic of his either myself. Matt G, I saw it last year in the theaters in IMAX. 2001 is epic. Now that would be cool. Now, if they played 2001 in IMAX where you're living, I would go see that. That is a movie that I imagine is incredible in that format. Alfred, what are your top 3 films Disney should never attempt to remake into live action? Goofy movie. I probably, if they've done The Lion King, which not really live action, but it's live action. Nothing's off limits at this kind of point. I'm just not a person that's offended. Like, I'm not gonna, excuse me. I'm just not the person to say, no, you can't do this one. So I don't have any really. All right, I got to rush through these last ones on here. I've got the fantasy football draft. My first of these for some of the people starts in about 20 minutes. So, and then I have another one 2 hours after that. So I got to rush through the rest of these. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And remember, Monday. I don't know the time yet. I'll put up a poll probably later today. Monday, I'm going to do another live stream, and it's my test run for my podcast. So I don't know what that'll look like. I'm still writing notes to experiment, but it's basically I want to get a bunch of practice runs before I go full live on my channel, because I'm large enough as a channel that a lot of people will probably check out what I'm doing. So I want to do it right. You guys get to see the first versions of that and help me kind of fine tune it a little bit. Harler Johnson, do you think you're ever going to get a new president this year? No, I will not get a new president this year. Trump will be the president this year. Do I think we'll get a new president next year? American politics is so bonkers right now. I really don't know what's going to happen. And so polarized too, that I think if the Democrats put up someone that's in the middle and comes off like a reasonable person, I think they got an easy win. If the economy kind of tanks a little bit, I think Democrats probably have a pretty easy win. If they put some of the people that are just kind of these really extreme views, I don't know what's going to happen, because people just want normal. I think that's what they just want, like a return to normal. So any candidate that can be the return to normal candidate, I think has an easy win. But if you're like talking about the antics of Donald Trump versus like an extreme person on the left, I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it is such a weird time. Like, you guys just watch this stuff like, what is going on? Like, it is such a weird show of bonkersness right now, and has been for a few years now. I think most every normal person wants just like, let's like ratchet down all the extreme views, get to a normal middle where we can like disagree but still shake hands at the end of the day. Right now it's just so bizarre and the extreme and everything. So it's a long time. Like the election's not this year, it's next year, and it's going to be a long year and a half to get there. Rich Reviews, my Alamo Draft House is going to show Stand By Me, The Great Escape, The Lost Boys Bodies. What would you recommend that I watch? All right, I've actually never seen The Lost Boys or Stand By Me. So if Cody Leach is watching right now, he's like deeply offended right now. I would have to go see those two based off of my allegiance to Cody Leach and what movies he loves that I haven't seen. So I need to see those ones. As for the one I have seen, which is The Great Escape, that'd be pretty cool to see on the big screen too. So that's a good set of movies. Body Heat, I wouldn't be as excited to go see, but the other three, I can't really give you a good answer. Ruben, my most anticipated movie of 2020 is A Quiet Place sequel. I just love the first movie. I really hope they don't screw it up. Yeah, me too. Pretty much everything you said there. I love the first one. I hope they don't screw it up. And that's also why I'm nervous about it. It's not a movie that obviously lends itself to a sequel, so I'm inherently nervous. David Patterson, do you think Knives Out will be rated R? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't have any deep inside information, but the trailer I saw gave me the impression it'll be rated R. That's the impression I got. But that's a impression opinion. That's not based off an educated opinion. David Patterson, I haven't seen Memento because I'm only 15. I mean, it's not a... I don't remember why it's rated R. I think it's rated R. It's not... Like, there's not graphic violence. I mean, there's a little bit of violence in it, but it's not like skulls crushed in violence. There's no sex, nudity in it. I would guess there's some adult language. I would guess, but it's not a movie that you remember for like how crass it is, or like a Tarantino movie, like, well, I mean, Django Unchained, they said the N-word. Like, it's not like that. So I couldn't tell you why it's rated R. Probably because there's 1 too many F words or 3 too many F words or something like that. But it's not movies that there's movies I'd be like, oh, 15, you probably shouldn't watch that. Memento, I don't think. There's probably not a reason you couldn't watch it. Especially if you're in a public school, you've heard far worse language every single day for the last 4 years at school. Rich Reviews. Rich Reviews, what we're currently reading. Same book I was whenever you last asked, I think. Current book I'm going through is 1 Million Followers. It's a book on how to grow on social media. It's actually really pretty good stuff, insightful. Cody Watson, I'm in the Fan City draft room, ready to go. 30 minutes till the draft. Yeah, I need to end this thing so I can get into the draft to get ready myself. I don't even know where I am in the draft order because I've been doing this whenever it announced it. Spencer Lewis, ready to draft. Who do you think for the first pick, Sean? Oh, man. I don't know. I would go with that running back guy, the guy with the name that I don't know how to pronounce it. Look this up to see where I am in the draft. But I would go with that running back guy. I normally go pretty safe on my stuff. I trust what the all the experts are saying, and all the experts are saying that well, actually, it looks like this one's changed up from the last one. Did he get injured or something, or is he just not in here? What am I missing? Or maybe I forgot the guy's name. Anyway, sorry about that. Trying to get ready for my draft. Mom and Monsters, have you ever fallen asleep during a movie at a movie theater? Not in 25 years. I think I fell asleep seeing Crimson Tide, which in the theater, literally 25 years ago. I fell asleep during that one. That's the only one I can remember. Rich Reviews, after the disaster started, what is a film, non-Star Wars, that you would love to see a behind-the-scenes making of? Behind-the-scenes, a making of them. Oh, man. Superman, the movie 1 and 2. That'd be pretty interesting. There's a lot of interesting drama on that one. Fantastic Four, Fan Four Stick, Josh Trank one. Those are the two that come to mind. David Patterson, my mom said she once went on a date to Nightmare on Elm Street opening weekend, and the next date they saw Fantasia. That's an interesting back and forth of those two. Alfred, thank you for taking time out of your day. No problem. David, these Q&As always always a great way to get a good hike walk-in. Oh, sweet. Ruben Otter, I'm excited about the podcast already. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully I've got some good ideas that I can make it a nice addition to my repertoire of content that it really adds something. I hope it can really do that. Alan Jensen and Sean Chandler for president. Man, I don't think I'd be a good president because I don't have the patience for not being able to get things done. Built into the system is it's supposed to be really hard to get things done. That's a lot of checks and balances, and that's why sometimes it's frustrating that things don't get done, but that's intentional. You don't want a crazy person to get in there and just run roughshod over everything. That's where some people, they want, I wish the president could do this, and they could just enact, But you want that when your guy's in power. Half our country right now really is glad that there's a bunch of checks and balances so that Trump can't do things. And then for 8 years, there was a bunch of people that were really happy there were checks and balances so Obama couldn't just run roughshod. So I would hate to be president because I like to get things done. That's actually why I wanted to be a content creator for myself and do this YouTube thing by myself, because it meant I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I get to decide what I do. And I can make it happen. I can just barrel down and just make things happen. That's the way I like to do things. That's the opposite of being the president. It would drive me insane. I'm also a people pleaser, and when you're the president, half the country hates you. I would not do well with that. Matt G, superhero movies have tried many different genres in their movies at point experimental. What genre do you think comic book movies should try that they haven't tried yet? I mean, I think we need an all-out horror one. I mean, you got a little bit of that with the Blade movies, but not really. So I think horror is an obvious genre that we haven't really gone into. New Mutants supposedly was going to do that, but then we didn't get it. So I think that's where there's a room for some growth. I really want a $50 million Batman movie that's a detective story. That actually, I would love Batman to not be a movie, to be a Netflix type series. 8 episodes, 10 episodes, and it's a mystery. And so every episode you have a big Batman fight. And Daredevil's shown you can do that for one of these TV shows. But you have this mystery that's being unraveled. And I mean, base it off of like Sherlock Holmes or something like that. Like really look at these great mysteries of all time and make that. Let the great detective be the great detective. And you get your fight at the end. You get a little bit of showdown. But I don't need big spectacle. You get some action, but the mystery drives the story. That's what I'd really like from a Batman movie or a Batman story. David Patterson, what if eggs were longer? What if eggs were longer? I've never thought about if eggs were longer, and I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. Mom Star and Monsters, see you in the later draft. See you there too. This is like a whole day of Patreon stuff for me. Actually, what's going to happen, I'm going to close this out in about 1 minute. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to put on Endgame, and I'm going to do these drafts while watching Endgame. So, so anyway, that's what my day is going to look like. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Draft people, see you soon in the draft. And keep talking movies too much. Really, thank you so much for joining me on here. And actually, we'll probably be live with some of you in a couple days from now on Monday with that podcast experiment.